Most people do not understand the power of food to create change. And so often in our society, the easy choice is the worst choice.
Let's talk just a little bit first about the COVID environment and what you've experienced as a physician, if you don't mind. I'd just love to get your perspective.
Well, I've been incredibly frustrated because the focus has been on very expensive, literally $1 trillion efforts to address the economic impact, to develop new drugs, new vaccines. And almost nobody is talking about the reason why America is 5% of the population, but has 25% of the COVID cases and COVID deaths. Why is that? It might be because of what we're eating and because our toxic diet. And that is something that is changeable, fixable, and addressable. I mean, think about it, Ken. If 63% of hospitalizations could have been avoided, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now.
Yeah.
We'd be all back to work and having a good time and going to parties. And I mean, that's the problem. And no one has named it. And it's the most frustrating thing for me. A study came out recently that showed that if your vitamin D level was over 50, now you could argue whether the study was good or bad or blah, blah, blah. But basically, it was a pretty good, robust study. If your vitamin D level was over 50, your chance of death from COVID was zero.
Wow.
Zero.
Wow.
There's no zero from any other drug or vaccine or anything else. So, I mean, these are the kinds of things that don't make it into the news, don't make it into the headlines. And I've been super frustrated that no one's talking about immune health and what we need to be doing. I mean, environmental toxins are also immunotoxins. They're not just poisons for our cells, which they are, but they're also immunotoxins, and they drive screwed up immunity and autoimmune disease and allergic disorders and a whole bunch of other things. So I think we really have to come to terms with this blind spot we have around the fact that we can upgrade our own health by upgrading our lives. And it's not just a personal thing, right? It is personal, but what we do to our bodies, we do to ourselves, right? But we also do to the planet. What we do to our planet, we do to the bodies. What we do to the planet, we do to our bodies. It's all connected, right?
Absolutely. We're constantly, metabolizing our whole environment. But you have dedicated your life to trying to understand the role of diet in nutrition and health. And so let's just rewind for a few people. This didn't start for you with COVID. This started with you a long time ago. You've written books about it. You've taught about it. You're at the Cleveland Clinic practicing it, and in your private practice just generally. But where did the light bulb go on for you, Mark? When did you decide that the way we've been approaching medicine just isn't quite right?
It was in college. I just, I met a bunch of people and moved into a house with a wonderful group of people. And one of them was a PhD student in nutrition. And he was very focused on understanding nutrition and health. And he gave me a book called Nutrition Against Disease by Roger Williams. This is back in the 70s. And I was like, whoa, the light bulb went off. And then he gave me a book by Ivan Illich called Medical Nemesis. And I began to start reading about ancient healing systems, about our environmental issues. And that was sort of an era where we were worried about nuclear power and nuclear war. And we still should be worried about nuclear war for sure. So I think we really, for me, it was an awakening. And then I began to explore my own diet and nutrition, living with them, and we cooked together and ate together. I began to explore yoga. I was a big runner, and I became a yoga teacher. So I always sort of had this proclivity to understand health and wellness and well-being. And I've been like that my whole life. But it's gotten way more focused as I began to really understand the scope of the acceleration of the destruction of our species. I mean, everybody's worried about the planet and the earth and the environment. Earth's going to be fine. Like we leave, it's going to reclaim itself. Just like with COVID, people went inside, and in a few weeks, all the animals are coming back and the fish were coming back. And it's like, we put humans on pause. The earth is going to be fine. It's a self-cleaning oven. We are not. We are at high risk of extinction, and I'm concerned because we are not addressing the root causes, which are both our food system and our toxic system. I don't know what to call it. Our environmental toxin system.
Absolutely.
Is there a word for it?
Well,
I don't know.
You did leave something out that you didn't mention as part of what turned the light bulb on, which was medical school. Not so much in medical school.
Oh God,
right?
no, God, no, no,
Isn't that part
God,
of the
no, no,
problem
no, no,
too, that we
no, 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 no. I went to medical school knowing I was going to be in a cult, and I was going to be indoctrinated, and I was going to be brainwashed, and then I needed to, make sure, like I was, like a good, Navy SEAL, that I knew the techniques to resist the brainwashing. so that, I was the weird kid in the class doing yoga in the back and bringing us healthy food to school. And, it was a very interesting experience. And I learned it. I did very well. I, was able to master the traditional medical model, but I really knew it was just a footnote to what was really true about the way our bodies truly work, which is, it's an ecosystem. And, when you understand the environment, you understand ecosystems, but in terms of the human body, it's not a bunch of parts that are all stuck together randomly. They're a dynamic, adaptive, complex system that's constantly evolving, changing in relation to its environment, to the diet, to environmental toxins, to stress, to our thoughts, our feelings. All of it is really transmuting our biology literally every second.
And that's functional medicine. That's the framework for it, right? So
that's right.
And you've been a pioneer in that field. I do want to editorialize a little bit. Like if there happens to be a dean of a medical school out there, I hope you're listening now, and give them just maybe a semester of nutrition. Would that be like to ask?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. You're right. I mean, there really isn't. I'm actually working with a group that's starting a new medical school on how do we develop the right curriculum, and I actually found out from somebody else that the dean of Stanford Medical School follows me on Instagram, but he only follows like 10 people. Like he doesn't follow a lot of people or something like that. I'm like, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. Like there's the light bulbs are going on, for people. It's just people don't know how to get to where they want to get to.
So when you're seeing a patient, what methods do you use? What have been successful techniques in your practice to actually get people to make those very hard changes? Was it Margaret Mead who said it's harder to get someone to change their diet than it is to change their religion? What do you?
Did Margaret Mead say that?
I think so, but please don't check it.
Okay, I'm gonna check that. That's a good one. They're about the same, I think.
Yeah. How do you teach that in the time that you're caring for a patient?
When the theory of evolution was just sort of described by Darwin, one of his contemporaries, Tage Huxley, said, "How stupid not to have thought of that." And so I essentially sit down with people and I explain to them the new paradigm. I said, this is how your body works. This is how you can upgrade your health. This is why you are having these symptoms and why you're sick. I'm not like, oh, you have arthritis, take this pill. I'll see you in 6 months. Or you have a migraine, take this injection or take this. I don't do that. I explain to them how their bodies work and get them to be enrolled as a partner with me in their health. They're the CEO of their health. The other key lever for behavior change, and I do that through talking to them. I do that through lab diagnostics. I show them, and I mean, when you do a mercury test on someone and you see their mercury's off the chart, they're like, oh, okay, I got or you look at their blood test and they see their insulin levels sky high and they're have all these risk factors for heart disease and stroke. It gets people's attention. But also the other piece of change is I call it the love diet. It's essentially the power of community and connection to create change. So I know how to change people's biology. I can reverse diabetes like that. Getting people to not eat the food that's causing diabetes is the hard part, right?
Right.
And so the power of our social networks, our community, our friends, that is what really drives behavior change. You're more likely to be overweight if your friends are overweight than if your family is overweight. The social threads that connect us are greater than the genetic threads. And so in that understanding, and we know this is true. This is not just a theory. This is true. And I've demonstrated the Saddleback Church where we got 15,000 people to go in small groups and lose, 250,000 pounds together in a year and reverse all sorts of chronic health conditions simply by helping each other and supporting each other and loving each other through the changes that need to happen, holding each other accountable. Rick Warren says, every body needs a buddy. Every body needs a buddy. Or getting healthy is a team sport is another way of saying it.
Well, I think, that's a theme in the conference. We've heard that from some of our other speakers, that the environment you create around you, the social environment you create around you, is one of the most powerful drivers, and it's pretty important to success that you try and shape that environment. So,
if all your friends are smoking and alcoholics, right, well, guess what? What are you going to be? And if all your friends are drinking green juice and doing yoga, well, what are you likely going to be doing?
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so it does make all the sense in the world to try and create that environment. So what changes, assuming diet is central to it, but in your practice, what have been some of the sort of keystone changes that patients can make that dramatically improve their health? I suppose everyone must be very different, but what are some examples?
I don't know, Ken. I mean, I just, I think people think it's mysterious and complicated and difficult, and that I'm going to come up with some great new secret. But the truth is, it's actually quite simple. And I just did a group program in Spain with about 16 people, and basically it was called Growing a New Body. With a friend of mine, we run this program. And it's sort of a health immersion program, but essentially it's a group and food. And then they can do a little yoga and, get a massage and, like that. But it's basically the food and the group. And in 1 week, we had people fill out a questionnaire of all their medical symptoms from all diseases: arthritis, migraines, diarrhea, depression, insomnia, joint pain, whatever, and we had them score it 0 to 4. And at the end of the week, after 6 days, the average score collectively in the group went down by 70%. Wow. There's no drug on the planet that can do that.
That's right.
So most people do not understand the power of food to create change. And so I'm really basically a cheerleader and a coach, an evangelist, to try to convince people, hey, you can do anything for 10 days. Try this and see what happens for 2 weeks, 10 days, what happens? And then they don't need to listen to me and say, oh, if you do this and this and this, you'll get better. They go like, oh my God, all these symptoms went away. Oh my God, I feel better. Oh my God. And then if they go back to eating the way they did eat, then it comes back, and then they can make the connection. Yeah. So their body is the smartest doctor in the room. Yeah. So to answer your question, the most radical change comes from diet change. Yeah. And what happens is that most people don't make enough of a radical change to see a difference. If you're drinking 12 Cokes and you only drink 6, might be better for you, but it's not going to change your life.
Yeah, that's right. That makes all the sense in the world. And so a lot of these simple dietary changes are very difficult for people to make. But what do you see when someone feels successful about it? How do they maintain the habit to eat well? Surround themselves when they can with people who are like-minded. Follow, and it's very basic stuff, right? It's cut back on.
It's structural.
Yeah.
I mean, it's structural, right?
For them to follow, right?
Well, yes, but it's also structural. There's many books written on habit change. Tiny Habits is written by a professor at Stanford. It's really great.
He's at our conference. He's one.
Oh, great. Okay, yeah, I love him, and he
made the connection.
Yeah, and he's a professor, and I saw him in Hawaii when I was there. And basically, he says, look, you have to have the desire, you have to have the ability, and you have to have a trigger, right? So, for example, this is early on, many years ago, I wasn't doing any strength training. I couldn't do a push-up, and I just saw a study that came out that if you can't do 10 push-ups, your risk of heart disease is very high. And if you can do over 40, then it's a better predictor of your cardiovascular risk than a stress test. So I'm like, well, every day I take a shower. I want to do push-ups. So my trigger is, and I have the ability to do push-ups, the trigger is taking a shower. So every morning I turn the shower, and it takes about 3 or 4 minutes for my shower to heat up because it's an old barn. And so I do my push-ups, and then I get in the shower. But I mean, it's building the structural things around you. So when I go downstairs in the morning, I have every ingredient I want for my smoothie on the counter. It looks a bit messy, but who cares? And that is basically a trigger for me to do the right thing. I make sure that I build into my calendar the things that are important to me. I plan a workout. I plan time with friends. I plan a walk. You have to build the structural things that make it easy. I mean, if you want to go for a run and you don't have running shoes, well, you can't go running. So it's that simple, really, is to build the structures and the strategies around you so that it's automatic. So that the easy choice is the best choice. Often in our society, the easy choice is the worst choice.
Yeah, that makes tremendous sense. And BJ did speak to this whole sequence of steps that really can help you embed better behavior,
Yeah.
replace a not so healthy habit with a very healthy habit. And it's it's not magic. The system makes perfect sense. Have you?
I mean,
go ahead.
When you go on vacation, you plan where you're going, you plan your hotel, your flight, you know what you're going to bring, you pack your suitcase. I mean, we don't do that for our lives, right? How do you organize your life so that I knew today I had a bunch of things. I had a board meeting. I had this thing with you. And I knew I wasn't going to get a chance to cook dinner. So last night I cooked double. And now I went down and was able to heat it up quickly and have dinner. I had a 15-minute break, which is not ideal. But, I was able to actually take care of myself and I have to, eat some crap that I couldn't get to or not eat at all. So I'm very focused on how do I build the structural components of my life so that what I need to do for myself that's good for me is automatic.
Makes sense.
I mean, if you want to brush your teeth, you got to have a toothbrush in the bathroom.
That's right. That's right. So let me ask you the gender question. Why is that?
I'm a
male.
male.
I know the answer to that. But why is it that men find it so much more difficult, it seems to me anyway, to form these habits of environmental health than women do? Or is that not your?
No, I think they're the inferior.
Well,
sex
yes, there's
the species,
that. Yeah. So we're starting way behind in the ballgame. That's right.
I think women are much more tuned into their bodies, how they feel, what's going on. It's like that Monty Python movie. It's just a flesh wound, just a flesh wound. His arm cut off, and he's like, oh, it's just a flesh wound. And I think I've experienced that. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm like, unless you're like having a heart attack on the floor or something, you're fine. And I think it's a male trait, and to just push through and it's unfortunate because we don't actually take care of ourselves, and we end up in terrible situations which could have been easily prevented.
Well, I used to go to my doctor when I lived in DC, a wonderful guy, and if I was a little late for the checkup, and I'm late right now for my checkup, by the way, so you can go ahead and wag your finger at me. He used to say, "Well, when was the last time you missed a checkup for your car?" I'm like, "Oh no, I never missed that. I make sure that I get it to the dealer right within the window."
Yeah.
And had me right there.
Yeah, exactly.
He had me right there. So do you tell me a little bit more about functional medicine and tell me a little bit more about what you're doing at the Cleveland Clinic, because I think this audience would be super interested in hearing more from you.
Well, I think when people think of the environment, they think of our planetary ecosystem. And we are part of that ecosystem. We're not a separate organism outside of that ecosystem. We are also inherently, our own biology is an ecosystem. And so when you begin to understand that your body is one interconnected system and that everything you do impacts how it functions, then you can begin to kind of change the way you live your life to optimize your health and optimize function. That's what functional medicine is really about. It's about understanding how toxins, how food, how stress, how infections or microbes, allergens all impact us. And it basically comes down to two simple questions. What is it that you need to get rid of that's upsetting your system? That's causing an ecosystem imbalance. Toxin, and there's a list of them, and Environmental Working Group is like the leader in the world in,
we got the list.
You know way more about it than I do. You got the list. In fact, I just did something about a home cleaning product company that, was talking about the Environmental Working Group's dirty dozen of household cleaning product toxins, right? So you guys do a great job with that. We have to sort of eliminate the toxins, eliminate the allergens, eliminate the microbes that are out of problem, and figure out what's bugging us and get rid of it. And the other question is, what does your body need to thrive? It needs the right nutrients. It needs the right food. It needs the right balance of hormones. It needs sleep. It needs activity, exercise, sleep, restoration, movement, love, connection, meaning, purpose. All those are the ingredients for health. So you take out the bad stuff, you put in the good stuff, the body naturally wants to heal. That's all we did. Like in this 6-day, 7-day workshop, all we did was take out the bad stuff, put in the good stuff. Got sugar, alcohol, caffeine, processed food, get them eating real whole food. I mean, it wasn't that complicated. And it's profound what happens because systems want to repair and heal. I mean, I don't know if you saw David Attenborough's latest film about his whole life story and how the environment's changed. And at the end, he goes to Chernobyl. And this is a place where basically a nuclear reactor went off and contaminated the entire area. And now it's like the Garden of Eden, right? The human body and the earth are self-cleaning organisms that if you provide the right conditions, will heal. I don't treat disease. I never do. I create health. And when as a side effect of creating health, disease and symptoms go away. That's functional medicine.
Do you want to know my secrets for living a long and happy and healthy life? Well, all I have to do is check out my weekly newsletter, Mark's Picks, where I share my favorite tips for health, longevity, well-being, and lots more. Check it out, and the link below.
And so give me and we're about at the end of our time, but I just wanted to ask you again a little bit about how, as a country, we've approached COVID. I mean, I'm just so focused right now on returning to normal, but there's something about what's going on now that's very positive when it comes to getting people to really absorb the vital significance of living a healthy life. Would that it had happened in another way, but the fact is, I think a lot of people have absorbed that lesson. We have a lot of people who aren't taking care of themselves during COVID, and we're reading about that all the time. But I also get a sense, and we hear this through our channels at EWG, through our social media followers and through email and just contacts, that there's some awakening has happened here as a result of this terrible pandemic. Is that your sense too?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, nobody wants to return to the normal that we had. The normal we had was not good for us. It was a crazy, frenetic, driven world where nobody had time for anything. And I think people are resisting that. And I think people are resisting working in the same ways and, being in the same places. And I'm doing that for sure. But I do think people are having an incentive that they didn't have to consider their overall health and well-being and how they can protect themselves from COVID. And so the message I give people is, you can become COVID resistant. You can make your home, your host, your body, not a very friendly place for COVID. And I guarantee you, I've been exposed probably many, many times because I've been out and about. I'm not been sick even before, a vaccine came on the market. And I think it's because I'm very focused on doing all the things that I need to do to upgrade my immune system. And I think everybody's thinking about that and asking about it and wanting to learn about it.
Yeah, and I think taking, those lessons from a very bad time and holding on to them, if you're taking steps to ensure that you're as healthy as you can be during COVID, so many of those steps will carry over into the post-COVID period. May it come as soon as possible, right?
For sure. I mean, just one simple thing people can do. I mean, a study came out recently that if your vitamin D level was over 50, that your risk of death from COVID was zero. Like zero you don't get from vaccines or any medication or anything, right? Zero. Now, why don't we have a vitamin D mandate?
Yeah.
We should. It should be given out free to everybody. Super cheap, very safe.
Makes sense.
If you love that last video, you're going to love the next one. Check it out here.
If your aspiration is weight loss and you think it's about walking on the treadmill at the gym, focus on the wrong behavior. So that's one of the systematic problems. Another one of the problems is the idea that you set this really lofty